So now that we've seen and heard the need for having a key signature, now we can really start breaking it down here on our pretend keyboard and on our staff. And this video is the exact same this week for both music fundamentals and keyboard fundamentals. However, the application might be a little bit different. So if you're one of the keyboard students, I highly recommend pausing after each one of these and actually playing these on your piano or your keyboard. Music fundamentals people, doesn't hurt to do that, but not necessarily something that you have to do in order to go on to what we're doing next in the course. So you might remember our half steps and whole steps from before. We're gonna start with, squeaky pen. We're gonna start with C major. Remember, C starts on this side of our group of two black notes. What we're gonna do for each of these keys, we're gonna make our major scale based on our whole steps and half steps, and then we're gonna see what it looks like up here using our key signature. Okay, we're not going to do, as some of you have done with me in class before, we're not going to write out the whole scale on the staff unless you really, really want to. But I think it's helpful for you to see exactly where the black notes are and why you might have the key signature that you have up here. Okay, so we remember, I'm not going to write it out here, maybe I'll put it on the video, but we remember our half steps and whole steps for our major scale are whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So I'm gonna give you a chance. I'm gonna start the first note right here, and if you wanna pause the video as soon as we start whatever key that we're working on, you can try to figure out the half steps and whole steps on your own, and then push play again to check your answer. That's a little tough to do if you're not able to print one of our keyboard and staff paper combination things. I'm gonna put the link on the screen so that you can download it and print it if you'd like, so you have something similar to work off of. I think, if I remember correctly, the keyboard is on the top and the staff paper's on the bottom, and the one that I found that's free, but it should still work. So anyway, I'll give you your first note, and then there will be a little thing on your screen that says to pause here, and you can try to figure it out on your own and then push play to check your answer. So here we go. So if we do our whole steps and half steps, we would find whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Okay, so some of you are already familiar with these scales as we work on them. And then we're gonna have our treble clef up here and our bass clef up here. And in order for C to sound like do, which is what we want, in the key of C major, C is do. In order for C to sound like do, we don't need any sharps or flats. We don't need any black notes at all. Okay, so when you're in the key of C major, you're actually not even going to see a key signature at the beginning of the staff. Now on to the next one. Here is G. Go ahead and try to figure out the scale on your own. Using our whole steps and half steps. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay, so I like to use arrows when it skips over a note like that, just so you can see where each note lands. Okay, so for G to sound like do, no matter what you are playing or singing, all your Fs have to actually be played or sung as F sharps, which is why when you do your key signature, there is one F sharp along the side, just like that. Okay, and the middle of the sharp, the square in the middle of the tic-tac-toe, that's what you're aiming to land on that line. Okay, so this is an F sharp because if you put a note on it, that would be an F, right? So this is an F sharp, just to be clear. So in the key of G, if G is to sound like do in G major, all the Fs need to be sharped. One sharp in the key signature, G is do. Next one. Here is D. Figure out your halves and whole steps and which black notes you need to use. And we find a whole step up. A whole step up uses that F sharp. Half step, whole step, whole step, whole step up to a C sharp, half step. Okay, so you'll find that just like last one for G major, we still have the same F sharp from before, but now we've added a new one. It's our C sharp. If you want D to sound like do, any song you sing or play, then you will see that same F sharp from last time. You will also see a C sharp down and to the right. 2 sharps in the key signature, D is do. Now, just because it only shows a representative F and a C, like there's actually another F sharp down here, but we're not going to put a sharp on that in the key signature because we're just representing each note that needs to be sharped, not marking every single one of them. So even if you're playing or singing this F, it's still an F sharp. It's just we put an F sharp in the key signature to represent that all the Fs are sharp and all the Cs are sharp. You don't have to mark all of them, just one of them. So on to the next one. Here's our next one, and as you might have seen, as you started to see these patterns, you're still gonna have the F sharp and C sharp as before, but we're adding a third one, and you can figure out what the third one is using your whole steps and half steps. Go ahead. So our whole step up would lead us to B, whole step up to C sharp, there's our C sharp revisiting us, half step up, whole step up, whole step up, there's our F sharp again, and whole step, there's our new sharp, G sharp, ending again at A. Okay, so this is the sharp we're going to add to the key signature, and the one that we choose is all the way up here. Use the G above the staff, so it kind of has this tight little triangle look, and then in the bass clef, it would look like this. So there are your 3 sharps. If A is do, all the C's, F's, and G's have to be played or sung as sharps. Next one. We have 2 more, this one and the next. So if E is do, use your whole steps and half steps to figure out you're going to have this same F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, plus a 4th sharp for E to sound like do. Go ahead and see if you can figure it out. So using our whole steps and half steps, whole step up would lead us to that all familiar F sharp. Whole step up, G sharp, we've had that one before. Half step up to A, whole step up to B, whole step up to C sharp, whole step up to, oh, here's our new one, D sharp, and half step up to E. In order for E to sound like do, all the F's, G's, C's, and D's need to be played or sung as sharps. So we're going to add that representative D sharp to the key signature, and it starts making kind of a diamond zigzaggy pattern. We're going to use that line for D and this line for D down here. Last one for this week, we start on B. For B major, for B to sound like do, you're going to need these 4 sharps plus 1 more. Go ahead and give it a shot. Okay, so if you hadn't figured this out already, if we're going to have 5 sharps in that key signature, which we will, we have 5 black notes. You're going to be using all 5 of them. So you can probably figure out exactly what it would be that way, but we're going to write it in anyway. So whole step up goes to our C sharp. We've had that one before. Whole step up to D sharp. Half step to E. Whole step to F sharp, still nothing new. Whole step to G sharp, already had that one. Whole step up to our newbie, A sharp, and half step up to complete it again at B. Okay, so we use all 5 of the black notes, and your key signature, you're going to add that A sharp right here in that space and in that space. So you can kind of see that there's 2 slanted parallel lines, and there's a reason for that. In our world, in choir world, we don't often see music in 6 or 7 sharps, although that does exist, and I'll show you how in a moment. So oftentimes I don't actually require my singers to learn past 5 sharps or 5 flats unless they are doing advanced music theory, because it doesn't show up in our literature, so it's not immediately applicable. The other reason is that we've just used up all our black notes. So the last 2 sharps are actually sharped white notes, which is something that just is a little bit more confusing for any singer that's never played an instrument before. So we only cross that bridge if we absolutely have to. So for those of you interested, I will show you where the rest of them belong, but it's certainly not required. On your musictheory.net exercises, it will only go up to 5 sharps or 5 flats as we're doing next week. Okay, so if you wanted to see what they look like, your next sharps would be E sharp and B sharp. So that's what all 7 sharps look like. And the reason that can be a little confusing sometimes is this is E, right? A half step up from E is another white note. And even though we would normally call it F, it's also known as E sharp. It does have an enharmonic name. Same thing with B and C. Another name for C is B sharp. So that's why we don't usually take it to that level or play through all of the scales to that point. Just know that they exist for now, and as you get more and more comfortable doing these and you want to keep going, feel free. But up till 5 sharps is just fine. Okay, so I'm zooming in here just to kind of give you a quick shortcut. Okay, so say I'm looking, because I mean, in real life, applicably, what you're wanting to do is be able to look at the key signature in your choral music and know what do is. That makes a huge difference in your ability to read the music. So our real life application is to be able to see that key signature and tell us what do is. So let's do this. We've got, pretend I'm putting up, let's see here. You don't have to pretend I'm actually doing it. If I have 3 sharps in the key signature. Now I can straight up just memorize that means that A is do. You can totally do that. There are only 5 sharps keys, so you can totally memorize them. But if you want a different way to remember it, the other thing you can do is go to the last sharp on the right and go up a half step. So one way to think about this is, I've heard other teachers say, if sharps you see, the last is T. So that last one is T. If you can go up a half step, you find do. So that's one way to look at it. So look at this last sharp on the right. If we put a note where that sharp is, it would be right here. And as we know, that's a G. So these are G sharps. If you go up a half step from G, you're going to find A. So you are in the key of A major. Let's do another one. Okay, if I just have 1 sharp, then the last sharp on the right is really the only sharp on the right. And this letter name, you might remember from just doing it on the keyboard right below, but if I were to put a note on there, that would be an F, yes? So these are F sharps, and F sharp up a half step, you would find G. This is in G major. And again, you can do it the same way with if sharps you see, the last is T. F sharp is T in do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, T, and then you'd be back to do. A half step up would be your do. That's how you find it. Let's do one more. Okay, we now have 4 sharps in our key signature. Go to the last one on the right, find out what note name that would be, where that sharp is sitting, and go up a half step. What do you find? This last sharp right here, or here, it's the same thing, is a D sharp. Go up a half step from D sharp and you find E. You're in the key of E major. E is do. Hopefully that's helpful to you. Now, as you practice this week, you're going to want to know these really well and really quickly. You want to be able to look at it and go 0 sharps or flat is C, 1 sharp G, 2 sharps D, 3 sharps A, and so on and so forth. You want them to know them very well. For some people, it helps to simply memorize them, like I said, and you're more than welcome to do that. There are a total of 11 major keys that I generally require, 5 sharps, 5 flats, and then the 0 sharps or flats, which is C. But in any case, that's not that many. So if you want to memorize them, you can, but a lot of people find the understanding of where they come from, the whole steps and half steps, and why you need those particular sets of black notes and white notes very helpful. So that's why we go at it from both directions. So in your musictheory.net exercises for this, see how quickly you can identify all of the sharps key signatures. We're going to do flats next week, and just pull this back up here. We've covered this week C major, D major, E major, G major, A major, and B major. The only white note we haven't covered is this one. So that means that a lot of the flats keys, you actually start with do on one of the black keys. So that's why we always start with sharps. They're just a smidge easier. Flats are coming next week, as well as some minor keys the week after that.